Hey guys, welcome back to the BuzWeaver channel, and we have some breaking news today across the social media sphere and the media sphere. We have from Mediaite, media world stunned by sudden resignation of CNN Jeff Zucker, a cable news cataclysm. Really, a cataclysm, wow. Jeff Zucker, the head of CNN and CEO of NBC Universal, announced his resignation in an email to staff on Wednesday. That would be today as of this recording, leaving the media world stunned. Zucker wrote in his resignation letter, as part of the investigation into Chris Cuomo's tenure at CNN, I was asked about a consensual relationship with my closest colleague, someone have worked with for more than 20 years. I acknowledge the relationship involved in recent years. I was required to disclose it when I began, but I didn't. I was wrong, and as a result, I am resigning today, which is what stuns, let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. What stuns the media world is that they typically cover for each other in these situations. The establishment protects and insulates itself, and so these types of impropriety can go on, and it's typical that it's usually worked out between the individual and the other individual. Not necessarily always female related, but suffices to say that these things are usually worked out. And so the only thing that's really stunned or stunning maybe is that they had to admit something that they've done, which is now going to be exposed to the general public besides just the cult itself and the echo chambers. So everyone's going to see it, to include the echo chambers and the cult, as it were. And we see here from CNN or from Fox News, Jeff Zucker out at CNN after failing to disclose consensual relationship with colleague. I was wrong. Now, it is interesting that they keep focusing on consensual. Because if you remember when they went after Donald Trump, they went into all the details about Stormy Daniels and so forth, but they very rarely ever mentioned consensual, of course, because it was just a way for them to smear the president, to undermine him, and just general rabble-rouse, and just, bring him down to gutter-level tabloid news, which is what CNN oftentimes generates, as well as the mainstream media. And we just see some additional interesting little outlines here from Fox, because I wanted to contrast it. Embattled CNN boss Jeff Zucker walked away from the liberal network on Wednesday after failing to disclose a consensual relationship, in quotes, by the way, with a CNN staffer. Well, I'll say it again. The establishment protects each other. They insulate each other. So the only thing stunning about it is that they just came out and said it or presented it to their own ilk, basically. So their own ilk would have probably not really accepted it, probably just ignored it altogether because these are normally insulated and so forth. But we can see the establishment still proceeds to continue, and I'm going to give you an illustration of how these individuals are insulated. So this week, as many of you may have heard, Whoopi Goldberg suspended from The View for this remark. I'd rather not say it because, YouTube censorship or YouTube AI. So Whoopi Goldberg has been suspended from The View for 2 entire weeks, guys. That's 14 days. 14 days. After facing wide criticism for her remarks that the events in Germany was not about race. Goldberg's suspension was announced in a statement released on ABC News Public Relations on Tuesday night. So a lot of these kinds of situations, and I'm not trying to make light of it or be dismissive of it, but in the general consensus of it all, it really gets kind of, passed off. So here we see Brian Stelter, who has his own issues of misinformation and disinformation. Jeff Zucker has announced his resignation and just kind of shows it on his Twitter. Now, he kind of lit up. We'll get into him in just a minute. But nonetheless, so you have Whoopi Goldberg making anti-Semitic remarks and comparisons to racism and so forth. And, of course, we're not going to go into the whole CRT thing, so forth and so on, nor am I going to espouse any particular reinterpretation of what the left is actually doing when it comes to CRT, because it's basically essentially doing what Whoopi Goldberg did, and that is looking at people's skin and making determinations about those individuals and other individuals, which is, by definition, racism. And, of course, we have here, you guys may remember the Women's March, the pink hat wearers. Of course, their actual name involves the particular anatomy of a female or a woman. Thousands of women who wore pink hats the day after Trump's inauguration. You guys remember them? Well, they also had a collapse within their infrastructure. Their two of their particular organizers, or the ones that created the group, got into a argument, or they also got into a anti-Semitic dispute. Apparently one of them was Jewish, the other one was black. And there was a breakdown within the pink hat wearing group, which is also interesting because it was anti-Semitic involvement there. But I'm gonna tie all this together. Now, I thought this was kind of amusing when I did a little bit of research on the Zuck. Well, at least as far as the Twitterverse, because Twitter just absolutely caught on fire because one of their own echo chamber establishment types left. Particularly, of course, when it comes to, as we know, popularity and influence, because, of course, CNN can espouse whatever it wants across all of across its networks, across the world, because CNN is worldwide. And Zuck here says, or I call him Zuck, Jeff Zucker, if I was on Twitter, I'd probably get in trouble pretty quickly. Well, not necessarily. You're very well protected. And we're going to get into Twitter here in just a second. And we come back over here to Fox News yet again for contrast, of course. Twitter explodes following Jeff Zucker's stunning resignation. Now they're saying stunning resignation. The most busted name in news. Well, that's kind of amusing to see that. So, reaction from Twitter to embattled CNN President Jeff Zucker's resignation was swift and harsh, with critics noting the network's decline in ratings under under his reign, and tying it to the firing of former CNN anchor Andrew Cuomo. So they're embattled, as it were, there at CNN. They're having issues. Of course, there's no more Orange Man bad news. That was basically CNN, MSNBC, CNBC, of course, Rachel Maddow, all of these people, Chris Cuomo, Don Lemon, and even Brian Stelter himself, were all part of the whole Orange Man bad scenario. Remember the 2.5 year fabrication, I'll call it, as opposed to the H word, of course, the fabrication that President Trump was involved in Russian collusion. Remember that they perpetrated for 2.5 years? Where's the misinformation there? Where's the disinformation news headlines there? Well, we did cover part of that, but it is kind of interesting. But speaking of misinformation and disinformation and anti-Semitic remarks, and of course the concerns of CRT, let's take a quick look at the Twitters, and we see, oh, what's this? Whoopi Goldberg is still on Twitter and still posting. She did a last post there on January the 31st. Now, speaking of Twitter, real quick, we see that AOC has taken a break from Twitter. Now, maybe argue that she was because she got completely owned over her comments about DeSantis down in Florida when he was there visiting with his wife, and she was trying to proclaim that he was absent or afraid or, just not around to really respond to what's going on, or to be responsible like she is and get things done like she does. So apparently she's taking a break. And of course, have you noticed that after that, she then contracted COVID? And then when a situation happened with Lori Lightfoot that she was embarrassed over, she had COVID. And then, of course, you have the protests there in Ottawa, Canada, the capital of Canada, where you would find Justin Trudeau, who was also embarrassed by what was going on by the protests, also got COVID. But again, I'm just connecting dots here. You guys can arrive at your own conclusions. Who else is still on Twitter? It's Andrew Cuomo, and he posted 5 hours ago. Under the same circumstances, or worse, actually, under his circumstances, because his involvement was not consensual. But here's Andrew Cuomo right here on Twitter. And, of course, his brother, who we were just talking about when it came to Jeff Zucker, when they were investigating Chris Cuomo. He's still here. He's still here. He's still on Twitter. That's right. And as we talk about anti-Semitic remarks and Whoopi Goldberg and the Women's March, the Women's March is on Twitter. They posted an hour ago. Who isn't on Twitter? A former President Donald J. Trump is not on Twitter. Also, an individual named Alex Jones is not on Twitter. These particular individuals, well, more specifically say Donald Trump. We already know what was going on with Alex Jones. But the idea here is that how is the media world stunned by this outside of the fact that they came out and had to turn one of their own over who then resigned? Because they were protecting Zucker. He was totally insulated, totally protected, had nothing really to worry about with his job other than the fact that CNN is completely tanking. But these are usually little signs that happen because they're looking further down the road. Because we know very well that Donald Trump in his next rally is going to bring this up probably, as well as just the general overall ratings decline among all of the mainstream media. So these are things that they're trying to insulate and protect themselves from because they know that Donald Trump is around the corner. They know he's around the corner, and Donald Trump is going to be out there getting stuff done. He had huge lessons. He learned huge lessons, or as he would say, huge lessons in his first presidency. Who to trust, who not to trust, whose advice was good, whose advice was not. And I think he's going to be ready to get the ball rolling come 2024. Now, of course, he's not announced because then he would have to follow the protocols and rules of the election committee and so forth and so on. So he's not announced as of now. But the big news, breaking news today, media world stunned by sudden resignation of CNN Jeff Zucker, a cable news cataclysm. And that's what I have for you guys today. If you haven't already, make yourselves available of the various social media sites like Twitter that I belong to down there just below this video. And of course, I want to thank all of you guys on Rumble, Odyssey, and BitChute for your guys' continued support. And you guys are amazing here on YouTube as well. The likes, the shares, and the comments. And I will see all of you guys in the next video.